Alrighty, we got Mr. Philip Jordan here today. This is an interview that I've been really excited about because he made a really cool post in our Facebook group the other day about his very first flip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by reading that, get you introduced into the reason why we're having this little interview today, and then I'll let you kind of introduce yourself. So I'm going to open this up here. The post was this: finally finished our first flip and it went live yesterday. This was one hell of a process and learning curve for me. I have to give a huge shout out to REISift, not as a software at this moment, but a community. Also to Tyler Austin for continuously encouraging me to get off my ass and to get to work. It took me a couple years to get my ass in gear, but I love this business, this community, and the friends and mentors I've made along the way. Many more to come in the near future. So I'd like to start out with congratulations, man. That's really cool that you went for it. You were probably very uncomfortable, and you stepped outside your comfort zone and got some really cool insight for us today. So, give us a
Yeah,
quick
thanks, bud.
introduction of who you are, where you're at, and then let's break down this deal.
Okay, so like you said, I'm Phil Jordan. I started with the REISift community back in when did he start? 2020, I believe. Like June of
Yeah,
2020
19
was
20.
the first auto lead gen challenge, I think is what we called it, or what he called it.
Okay.
But I guess as far as the real estate industry, I used to be in oil and gas for it was 12 years, I think.
Okay.
And work got slow, and I moved back towards home from North Dakota, and they just didn't really have anything else for me to do at the moment. And I, was always wanting to get into real estate, and I just kind of took that as my sign that this is my time to go do it. And um, I I was kind of slow at getting into it. I
Okay.
did a lot of studying, a lot of like getting started and then not doing anything, and then getting started again and not doing anything. And Tyler was always a really good push for that. He was always um, very supportive of like, hey, I understand, but like, this is what you need to do, and if you're not going to put in the work, like you're not going to be successful. And so I was a product of I would work my ass off for a couple weeks and then not for a couple weeks, and I kind of got to a point where I was just like severely in debt and couldn't keep up with anything. And
Okay.
I found what I didn't like to do, and what I did like to do was, I've always been good at being in front of people. I've always been good at like um, leadership roles in small groups is what I was mostly involved in the oil and gas industry. And so I just kind of got to the end of my rope, and I was like, what can I do? What kind of I guess prospect or what kind of avatar is
Sure.
going to need my help right now? Because I've got bills to pay right now, and I don't want to go back to work. I want to get to
Yeah.
work for myself. And I thought I knew a few of the they hired trustees here in Nebraska to take care of foreclosure auctions, and they had auction dates set up that were anywhere from a day out to like a month out. And I was like, well, obviously these people need help right now. Like they're
Yeah.
going to either have to sell or I can help them keep their house. And so that's kind of the approach I took. And I just started at the top of the list here in town and started working my way down. I just went and beat on their door because I found for me that I can work a prospect and I can work through a lead, but I just fucking hate sitting in the office and talking on the phone. I
Yeah.
just, I just, I can do it. I just hate it. Like, and that's something that I'm still going to have to get past if I want to grow and
Yep.
do more. But so anyway, that's kind of where I went. I always liked the education that Tyler's put together on deep prospecting and finding people, and that's always been fun for me. And so when I started banging on doors, came across I came across this flip that we just finished. It's not the first flip that I've started because I've still got another one that we're working on. Uh, was actually my first deal, which was ended up being a subject to deal, and it's a out of town deal. So that was pretty cool. We'll talk a little bit more about that if you like. If you'd like,
Yeah.
but for this flip, it was a vacant. Uh, it was on the foreclosure list. It was supposed to go to auction in like 3 weeks, and
Okay.
so I went and had to go find the guy that lived there had died, and I had to go find his family, which fortunately I only had two sisters, and they both got along really well. They're a little bit older,
Okay.
They didn't really like, they had just kind of walked away from the property. They didn't want anything to do with it. It
Yeah.
was their it was their like place they grew up in their childhood, and he had destroyed it. Like it was a hoarder house, and the guy had actually died in the house, and he
Okay.
was there for gosh a couple months before they found him, and so it was pretty gross in there.
Okay.
Um, but anyway, so they had pretty much walked away from it, and I went and just knocked on her door, and I was like, "Hey, this is what I do. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And would you guys be interested in working with me on this?" And talk to her a little bit, and just kind of got her more comfortable with me and what I'm doing, and she said, "Yeah, that sounds great. We'd love to work with you." And so we ended up working together, and I got to learn about probate because we had to take it through a super fast probate,
Yeah.
and I think we got it through probate in like a week and a half, and then we were able to do the sale, and it all worked out really good.
So
So we
this,
started that flip, and that was another learning curve for me. Was I got it closed, and I partnered with someone that I used to work with years ago, and so that's how I've been able to do most of what I'm doing, and just keep operating, is because I've been able to, I guess, strategically partner with people that already have a relationship with, who are already
right.
successful, and so they helped me out in ways that I couldn't. Like that house, I would have had to wholesale it, but I was able to take some equity off the top and do this flip. But I
Right.
also wasn't prepared to do a flip either. And so I actually sat on that thing for, gosh, probably 2 or 3 months before we actually started working on it, because I was like just going and getting random bids for this and for that and for this and for that. And um, I finally found a contractor here in town who does everything, and he's also an investor. And he does like the construction side. His name's Billy Nino with New Era Construction. I don't think he's in this community, but I have to shout out to him because he helped me out a lot through this whole thing, through this
Yeah.
whole process. And so I met him, and he just, man, he was almost a mentor to me as my
Sure.
contractor as
Yeah.
well. So you know, um, we got the bid put together and an agreement put together and got started, and in just a couple months we knocked her out of the park pretty good. It ended up being like a way over budget thing because we went a couple directions that
Yeah.
we didn't know about or didn't know we were going, and but yeah, we're still gonna make money on the deal, and yeah, it was a pretty good experience. Yeah.
Awesome. So I got a few questions. Um,
Shoot.
one, see, from the wording of your, because this is my first time meeting you, so I always assumed that you were already doing deals. So this was in general your first deal.
No, this would have been my third third or fourth deal.
Got you.
Um, my first deal actually was local here, right down the road from me in a small town.
Okay.
Um, and that deal, I partnered with another guy that does
Yep.
business here in town. He's in the group. His name's Michael
Okay.
McDonald. I partnered with him on that deal,
Yep.
and we just worked out an equity split, but we didn't have to put any work into it. And the little bit that we had to do, he's got a whole team set up, and he had his guys do.
Sure.
Um, and then after that, my second my second deal that I took on mostly by myself. I also partnered with Michael on that one, but that was down in Kansas, and that was a that was a foreclosure that it was supposed to go to auction the next day, and I just winged it and called the guy on the first number that I got on a skip trace, and he didn't answer, and I sent him a text message, and he picked up, and I was like, "Hey man, you doing anything about this?" And he's like, "No." Nah. I was like, "You
Yeah.
willing to sell it for what you owe on it? Just to avoid foreclosure?" He's like, "Sure, okay, if you can make it happen." So we spent the next 24 hours on the phone with the bank trying to make it happen,
Yeah.
and so we ended up going back and being able to take that one over subject to after we got some more time to work it out.
Okay.
And so we're still working on that's another learning curve for me, is hiring out of state contractors or working deals virtually. Um,
Okay.
because it's close enough I can go down there and make a couple day trip out of it, but
Yeah.
it's not real functional. But so yeah, we've been working on that one for God, I don't even want to say it.
Yeah.
It's been like well over a year dealing with
You're
this
working
guy,
on it.
but we're
Okay.
working on it. So
So
we'll still make money. We'll still make good money on that one. But it's just been a long time in the works.
Yeah.
But that was my first real deal that I went and took down myself.
Okay.
And then this flip here in Lincoln is the first flip that I've done on my own and just
Got you.
being in control of everything.
Oh,
But yeah,
got you. Got you. Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big difference. So, what something I'm curious about is the time frame between, I don't remember how you put it, but the time frame between the the time period of life where you were on it for 2 weeks and then you stopped and then on it, that time frame between the last time you started up again, between that start point to what's eventually now you closed three and you got this one that just closed, which I think is a part of that three, and now you got one more. So
yeah.
there's 4 deals or something like that
There's a
from.
couple more in there too that were just kind of simple little things, but
So what's
it
that
was
change look like? What did that change feel like? Because it's very relatable.
it's just man, it's I don't know what it I don't it's just more of a personal realization of like I've got to get to work or I'm just gonna just bury myself.
Yeah.
Like it was just like a head underwater, reach out and grab for something and
Okay.
like pull yourself up and keep climbing.
So your back
Because
was
yeah,
kind of against the
it,
wall a little bit.
all the way, man. Like so it would have been basically the last time I was really in that position would have been, gosh, probably maybe like July of last year,
Yeah.
almost a year ago now, is when I started door knocking, and that's what I do now. Is I just do door knocking because I know that I can go out and do it, and I can do it comfortably. Not comfortably, because obviously every time you go bang on a stranger's door, it's not comfortable,
Right.
but it's just something that works well for me, and I'm able to relate to people. And I guess the way I present myself to people, it's easy for them to, uh, I guess, accept me into their life for that short period of time.
Yeah.
And I've been able to help a lot of people just keep their houses too, and so that's been super rewarding. But that I think July of last year is just I was just very far in debt with a lot of different things. I made a lot of very poor financial decisions in my life,
Okay.
and so it was just kind of time to grow up.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
it's the best way to put it. We've got 4 little girls, and we've got like a little farm out here, and everything depends on me to keep it
Right.
running, and it's just get after it.
Yeah. Wow. That's yeah, there's so much to unpack with that. So that's a
Yep.
really a cool bit of insight. And then now because your back was against the wall, did that negate a lot of the fear?
Yeah,
The fear
absolutely,
of becoming that person, of the person
absolutely,
you wanted to be? Okay.
yeah, absolutely, man. That was it was like it was like we got to make this happen, or
Yeah.
like it's not like it wasn't like a suicidal thing, but it was like I feel like my life is just if I don't make something happen right now,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Like it's either
Wow.
this or go back to work and just be behind for the rest of my life
Yeah.
and be miserable and and my kids are going to have to live just a miserable life of just nothing, just
Right.
poverty basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that's not a fun way to go about things. It's not a fun way to live.
Yeah.
It's not a
So
healthy
then
way to live.
so then now in terms of the you're into the first project. Let's go over this example in
Sure.
the post. This is
Yeah.
yours, the one that you're in charge of. You're doing pretty much all of it on your own. Um, what was some of the biggest bullet points in terms of learning curve items that you found through this? Like, was it scheduling contractors, getting them to come out, realizing you needed to learn about getting cabinets, a certain way? What was it for you?
Dude, it was, I mean, everything you just said, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, Everything you just said, yes. Like I went into it because, I've done, I haven't been like a contractor in my life, but I've done a lot of construction work and stuff. And, I've helped build a couple of houses. And so I
Okay.
understand how everything works. I've just never had to put a project together
Yeah.
and go about it that way. And so there's a lot of little things involved that were just I wasn't ready for. And like I think that if you're gonna acquire something like I wasn't prepared to acquire a property and do a flip on it. And the reason that I was able to do that was because of the partner, that the guy that I partnered with. He'd been in real estate and flipping these little places for, I mean, years now. And he had a conversation with me about basically, um, we're in a position to where I don't. He said, I don't want you to think about the money right now, the cash right now. Think about the future and what this can do for you
Yeah.
for the future. And so then we started, he had me start looking at it as like, if we could make it into like a duplex, or we could make it into a rental property or some kind, what can we do with it? What's it going to be worth if we flip it? And he made that possible for me because, as my financial partner, he was able to like let me take some equity up front so that I can keep operating and
Yeah.
make this project work basically.
Mm-hmm.
And without a partner like that, I would have had to go and borrow hard money on it at 18%,
Yeah.
22%, and it very quickly wouldn't work.
Yep.
And so if you're, I guess, in a position like I'm in, lean on your relationships, and just like be strategic about who you partner with, and make sure that you get along, make sure that you're compatible, and you can do stuff like that. And fortunately for me, he was patient with me. He was in a position in his life where he just kind of let me run with it and just kind of let me fail forward. And
Yeah.
he had that conversation with me, a couple months in, when I finally, I guess, got the ball rolling. He was like, I just kind of wanted to see what you were going to do and see if you were going to, get this thing going and get it figured out, or what was going to happen. He's like, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I'm proud that you're making these decisions and working on this. But yeah, that's how we were able to make a lot of things work.
Wow. That's really cool, man. Yeah. Did any of that fear or nervousness go away as you crossed that threshold into the ownership of the property as you started working on it, or did it all kind of just stay there and develop into its own separate, anxieties as the project went? Because I think there's so to be on, there's like a threshold, you're outside of the property before you buy it, right? And then you buy it. Now you stepped across that threshold. You're in the realm of doing this flip. What what then happened? I mean, what was the first thing you did? You said you started looking at um if it could be multifamilies, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Where did
So then I
your
started.
how did that strategy mold around?
So I kind of started with going down to the city and like looking at the zoning and seeing. That was kind of the start to it. Like my partner was like, "Hey, let's see what we can do with this thing. Go find out what we can do with it." And um, so I, obviously went down to the city and talked to them, see what the zoning was like, see if it was something we could change into something else, and found out that wouldn't work well. You can't do that where we're at, just because of zoning. And then it and it was a slow process too. I wasn't, on the ball getting this stuff done every day right away. Um, and so we basically decided that it needed to be a flip. And then once we decided it needed to be a flip, then I was like, okay, well, now what? And so I was like, well, it needs new windows. And so I go get a window bid from a couple of
Yeah.
people. Like, it needs this. So I go get a bid for a couple other things. And then, obviously I've never ordered cabinets before. And so I wasn't even thinking about that. And then
Yeah.
we got later on and it's like, oh, we're gonna need cabinets. But it was just like getting bids and scheduling them out. Like everyone can't just come out the same day at the same time. So I found, getting bids and scheduling them out. I was like, okay, well, now we're 3 weeks in and I've got, 4 different bids for 4 different things, and I need 3 more things done. And it was really just piss poor logistics and time management on my part.
All
Um,
right.
but, but then I just kind of got to a point where I was like, this doesn't make sense for me to be meeting with these people and getting all these bids and doing all this shit. Like, I don't I'm not doing the construction. I'm not gonna I should be out finding more deals. I was like,
Yeah.
this is stupid for me to be putting my time into this. And I was like, I just need to either hire my own team, which obviously I'm not in a point to do,
Nope.
or find a contractor that does everything. And so I found a couple of contractors that obviously do everything and had them come give me bids, and that's when I met Billy is his name,
Yep.
and that was what I needed moving forward. He kind of let him take the reins on parts of some things, and allowed him to make assumptions on some things, and I ended up doing a really great job for us, and we ended up with a really nice product, and I ended up with a lot of new knowledge and a great another person to put in my circle and to
Okay.
be on, I guess we'll say, our team.
And was Billy a part of your partner's network,
Nope.
or was this someone? Okay, so when you first had your first conversations with Billy or and the other contractor that you mentioned, um, how did you navigate that conversation as someone who is was new to it? Because for me, I would think that I would be fearful that maybe if someone caught a drift that I was new, then maybe they'd try to get a couple extra bucks out of me. How did you navigate that?
That's always definitely a good fear. Two two things, I guess. Probably two things. Like number one, I usually, to a fault, probably assume the best out of everybody and let
Yeah.
them prove me right.
Okay.
And so, uh, and then with that, I also got multiple bids off of from different contractors just to make
Okay.
sure that one wasn't crazy far off from the other. And so, I guess what I saw doing that was I didn't really see anybody trying to take advantage. Obviously, like some of my bids were way different, way far apart, but I think that a lot of that came down to like the finish work that people do and the the different sub company or subs that people hire, and a couple of them like don't have their whole own team, they just hire subs for everything.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really see too much of anyone just really trying to take advantage
Okay.
of me as being new. But like with like for example, when we hired Billy, I really had a great feeling about him.
Good.
He was he was mostly an investor first, so he's got dozens of rentals in town here, and he's done a lot of work in the area that I had that house in. And um, something that really impressed me about him was he requires you to get either another bid first and bring that to your meeting, or you give him $50 to come give you a bid, and he donates it to like uh, like a return to school program, like for backpacks and
Yeah.
shit for kids. And so, like that really told me a lot about his character right out of the gate. And then
Yep.
meeting with him, like obviously, obviously going and door knocking and making relationships with strangers, you've got to be able to read people somewhat. And
Yeah.
so it was, I could just tell that he was a genuine dude, and
Okay.
really wasn't going to take advantage of me.
Yeah.
So yeah, mostly I just put faith in people until they prove me wrong.
Yeah. That I mean, that gave me faith in him. I mean, just his setup. If that's what his setup was for. He's like, people need to feel comfortable and safe. Wow, that's actually
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and
Okay.
so on with that, to just for to make me feel comfortable throughout the
Sure.
process, if we had something new that got brought up or that needed done, he would always tell me, "Go get another bid, go get a couple of bids, and I'll let you know what it's going to cost for me to do it," which probably helps him just navigate how much he can charge for it. But also, he was always less than all of them.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
That sounds like you got an ace in the hole. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
Okay. So we've discussed the flip, we've discussed a lot of the emotional side of it, which I've been dying to talk about on this because I feel like that's the biggest barrier to entry, right? And
And it goes so deep too. Like just from day to day, like it can be so different from day to day.
yeah,
Obviously the biggest thing is like, are you going to show up when you're tired? Are you going to show up when you don't want to? And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And that's something that I still work on every day and every week. Um, obviously I understand, being part of the REISift community for so long, how important it is to systematize things and
Yeah.
track your KPIs, and those are still things that I I don't struggle with them because I just don't do them mostly, and I know how important they are, and that's my own stupid fault.
Yeah.
Um, it's something I realize I need to get done, and because I don't want to, obviously I don't want to be the only moving part of this whole thing forever,
Yeah.
and that's not going to be functional for the way I want to live my life.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm
yeah,
really glad about this discussion because this is a very relatable discussion. It's a lot of our discussions are talking about how some people have done 16 deals in a month or seven figures in a quarter and but to see someone who's in the trenches, who struggles with, the same struggles we all have with discipline and stuff like that, but you persevered through it. It's really cool, man. Like that's for me personally, that's very inspiring. I was in a similar situation recently where Tyler kind of brought an opportunity to me, and to be honest, I kind of crumbled a little bit from the fear. So I think
yeah,
even just for me selfishly, this is a really amazing conversation. So, um, now that you've definitely crossed that threshold of breaking through who you once were into a whole new version of yourself from what it sounds like. Where do you see yourself going now? Do you see yourself kind of maintaining at the pace you're at and really fortifying that, or do you feel like you're at a position where you can start growing on that? We got a few minutes left in this meeting, so I figured that'd be a good way to kind of end on this.
sure, absolutely, man. So with where I'm at right now, I guess kind of my step by step where I want to go. My so my my I guess my biggest like 5 year goal is for us to be living on our own like small acreage, and having enough rental income to let us, I guess, kind of run our acreage. We've got a couple of other business ideas we want to do with like our animals and stuff.
Yep.
And so I want to be at a point where our rental income can supplement whatever we can't do off of that, and
Yeah.
allow us to live a good life, and allow us to take a couple of trips a year, and just kind of, obviously, what everyone wants, just to be free, be financially free. And
Yeah.
uh but my smaller term goal is, number one, to be debt free by the end of this year, which
Okay.
is a pretty big feat ahead of me. I've got a lot of work to do.
Okay.
And in order to make that happen, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that without systematizing what I'm doing.
Okay.
Uh, what I want to do is get systematized in what I'm doing now, and I'd like in the next like 3 to 4 months be able to have the the money set aside to bring someone else on
Sure.
and get them involved in this, so that I can either have another one of me out there, or so I can have at least some one of me out there, every day doing the same thing, knocking on doors, because it's super time consuming. Like, you can only do so many in a day. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know the exact KPIs on it, but uh, I'm pretty. If I had to take a wild snap at it, we'll probably get a deal out of every 15 doors we knock. So it's pretty good. Maybe 15 to 20. And it's
And these
just,
are the
but
vacancy
but it's time
foreclosures.
consuming. It's time consuming. And the way we approach these people, I end up spending a lot of time with them, like working with the bank and trying to help them keep their house before they have to sell it or move out. And sometimes, obviously end up sitting there talking to someone for 3 or 4 hours just to do that.
Yep.
And that's a whole nother thing you can dive into. but
Yeah.
um but yeah, and so that's my goal, is to, I guess, simply systematize what I'm doing, because it's not real complicated. It's just, it takes a special kind of person to go and do that. uh and then I want to incorporate more of the more of like the book stuff, more of
Sure.
the big processes, the hiring VAs, and growing that part of the business too, because I
Yeah.
think that part of the business is going to be incredibly important for creating more of a, we'll call it passive, creating more of a passive
Yep.
business out of it. Um, and
We
I,
call that
you know, I can,
opportunity data typically.
yeah, and I can, you know, and I can see that. And obviously, being in the community, I've done all of the auto lead gen challenge, the go no go challenge, the um, gosh, what's the last one we did?
Data to dollars, first to market.
$800. Yeah, I've done all of those, been through all of them, and you know, it's one of those things where I set everything up, and then I'm just like, I just don't sit on the phone well, and it's more productive for me to go out and do. And that being said, that's another one of my faults is that I don't incorporate REISift very well with what I'm doing. Like even though I've only got a couple of things going on at a time, I could still keep that in
Yep.
the software
Yeah.
and run it through the software instead of keeping notebook scraps and setting alarms, you know?
It's okay though. I
Um,
mean, you're still receptive to what's being taught and you've clearly implemented. I mean, you're starting small and you're gaining control. Like that's the biggest thing right there.
yeah.
So yeah, that's amazing, man. I got a million questions about the land and stuff because that's my own personal interest. So I'm gonna wait till this call
Sure.
ends to ask you those. But
Yeah.
I think unless you have anything else you want to talk about, I really think this was a very, very important call and this was really good. So thank you very
Something that
much.
just something that just popped into my head, and I don't think he still has a page called this. I think it's his war group now, maybe. But I know Tyler used to have it set up as no excuses real estate. I think is what
Yep.
it's called.
Uh
And
yeah. Now it's willing and relentless. Yeah.
I think that I think that's a really important thing to think about every day is that, you know, the only person that's going to slow you down or stop you is you. And I'm perfectly capable of coming up with 10,000 excuses every single day why I shouldn't get to work or why I don't need to work or what I can get done here and not get to work. But at the end of the day, like what I've got at home is still going to be there when I get home if I go get my ass to work. So mostly just go get the fuck to work.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave it at that. That's perfect, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You betcha, man.